I originally only cared about characters like Superman, but the more I watched shows like this, it made me interested in other characters. A character that barely showed up in this show that I want to talk about today is Dr. Fate. He's one of the most powerful magic beings in this world. Magical beings have appeared several times in Justice League. The animated series, like strong sorcerers like Zatanna, has popped up. A famous magician that everybody probably knows about that are in the magic world in real life, Morgan Le Fay. She's in a lot of folklore. So it's natural that the DC animated universe has their own version of Morgan Le Fay. Magic people are always correlated to demon stuff, so that appears too. Heck, even super strong magic beings like Cersei. But let's analyze Dr. Fate in the DCAU. They pretty much name it here in the lore about the beings that are specializing or have a foot tied in the supernatural, magic-ish. Dr. Fate is even aware of the other magical beings that exist in this world. Believe it or not, the DCAU is actually more than you think. It actually has comics that continue the adventure. Dr. Fate is also in these comics to continue the adventure, so we can get more lore from those as well in this video. Let's get into it. When it comes to being a magic user in any form of fiction, magical artifacts, magical equipment is everything. Dr. Fate is no exception to this, because one can say he has gear, special gear to help his abilities and stuff like that, like the helmet of fate being one of the many. So he is a man underneath that Dr. Fate mask, but most of the time when he's actually fighting, he always has it on and such. In this universe, it seems that they are still following that model of him being tied to a cosmic being known as Nabu. He even states Nabu commands. Nabu exists in the DC animated universe as well. Confirmed he is Nabu's toast, and he's done it for such a long time. And he has a wife. Nabu will even share knowledge with Nelson, working together at times. The only weakness one could say for Dr. Fate in this universe is certain things like nth metal. That's anti-magical, so it's like he's pretty much useless if you use nth metal against him. So when it comes to his versatile magic he can do, he can literally fly. That's why you never see him sprint. He just floats to the next destination. He doesn't need super speed because he can just quite literally open a portal and just cross vast distances via teleportation. Like, you see him do it here, just casually, just teleport away. He can literally forcibly teleport you somewhere else. He can kind of do some cheat code stuff and banish beings, teleporting them somewhere else or to another dimension. Like when Superman was possessed here. Like, he has his own tower, and it's a tower that has stairs everywhere, Matter of fact, his own room in the watchtower that's above the earth, right? When you go through his door, Dr. Fate literally said it's a portal to his tower. It's the home of Dr. Fate, this place known as Salem. It's his own tower. As a magical person, you always see magic beings dealing with a lot of books. Yo, he has a mystical mirror. He can literally walk through to get to the watchtower faster, as you see him literally do it. And there's no telling how many magical artifacts he has in this tower of his. I mean, you see all these books, all this stuff probably has like ancient knowledge on it and stuff of that such. Like, this is one of many magical artifacts, Zatara's amulet that we see in the DCAU. These amulets in this particular scan are basically powerful keys that unlock other existences, opening doors to other planes and back. He's able to store stuff in another dimension, like Hawkgirl's mace, for example. He gave it back to her here, of course. So one could say, since he's a magic person, he literally has a magic satchel. He can do shadow clone jutsu, make a whole bunch of clones of himself to blast you to outnumber you. But they're not the real him, so they're not as durable, What magic person doesn't have telekinesis? There's a good chance he has telekinesis too. Floating books, you get the idea. He can do energy projection. One can say blast power. He can fire energy blasts of magic. And God knows how many different elements he can use. You got moments like this where you literally see him blast with energy projection. He can even shoot eye beams from his helmet. I mean, he can spam energy projective blast magic like this, for example, like rapid fire, like bullet streams. He seems to be able to do omnidirectional blasts. He can even do Green Lantern construct type stuff. Like, he made this junk to keep Flash down here. Construct, magic. One can say he can manipulate different elements. Like, one can argue earth manipulation. He can create this giant rock creature to fight you. He literally confirmed he can do illusions, summon dread creatures from beyond. There's implications that he can exorcise demons. aka that's something most magic people can do. In this occasion, we see him actually make these things come alive to blast. Just like most magic people, he can make a shield to block attacks too, of course. You can literally see him making a shield here. You see Dr. Fate doing a force field around him and everybody in the league. Right here, for example, he can watch TV and just show you something even if he's not there, like how he showed everybody here, how Grundy was going crazy. Dr. Fate might be one of the few beings that's actually more versatile than Martian the Manhunter, because he can also go in your mind, read your mind via magic and such. So one could say he has telepathy via magic. He was literally inside of Flash's mind. There was this time Flash and Lex Luthor had their minds switched with each other's bodies, and Dr. Fate was able to make a spell to make him back to normal again. You can even see him do it in comics like this, going in people's minds, there's implications he can go intangible, like how he comes up like that, out of the ground like nothing. There's occasions like this that might imply he can go intangible too. If he sees magic that's complicated, it might take some time, but he would eventually figure out how to break through the magic or remove it. He can also do spells to where he can reveal your location. Like he was able to reveal Aquaman's injuries here to see it wasn't permanent damage. This purple aura you see here, this is technically a healing charm confirmed by Dr. Fate, so he can heal beings. Dr. Fate can do a simple spell that makes it to where if he wants to so choose, shield him and whoever he so pleases in a spell so nobody can see or hear them. He technically has holding spells too. Like he has binding spells, like he can stop all this debris and bind humans up if he wants to. He thought she was possessed, but we literally see him blast all of Superman's disguise off to reveal that he's Superman. Just minor energy projection, he can do that to thick rock. And it's obvious thick walls he can blast down. What is his blast power? Is that really up for negotiation? He's a magic person, top tier one at that, you know. Since he's a magic person, he doesn't need his physical muscles to be crazy, but how hard can he hit via magic blast power, one could say. Even in this universe will be a good way to understand his might, because blast power is everything as a magic person. There was these beings that Superman was slugging with. They can take his hits a little bit. These things were decently strong and they were large. And Dr. Fate can stagger such things with his energy blast to get an idea of his concussive force he can blast out with. And not to mention the whole crew was holding back. But after Superman and them said no more holding back, Dr. Fate just blasted it apart. So even large statues that are alive coming at him, he can blast them apart, even if they're this big. Visual proof right there, you know, blast power. There's not many showings of his speed, but there's implications that Dr. Fate is extremely fast because Superman thought he ruined his identity here. He says, you ruined it all in a fraction of a second, implying he can blast in a fraction of a second maybe. Not many showings, but you got occasions like this of him dodging attack. Could imply fighting speed or reflexes. He technically made a cameo in the brand newest animated movie for Justice League that's in the same universe as Justice League Unlimited. There's like legit statues of all the characters, and Dr. Fate is here too, along with Zatanna, other magic people. They just didn't really do anything in this movie other than just show his statue here though, Dr. Fate. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the power levels of this animated universe is a lot more crazier than you might be thinking. Dr. Fate lacks screen time, so it's kind of understandable if you underestimate his power. It's really not much to go off of, because nothing you've seen in this video is like super duper impressive when it comes to his raw blast power, is it, right? Well, let's dig deeper, shall we? Like, there was this comic, of course, that's in the same universe, literally the same art style, of course. We can kind of get an idea of what his blast power or energy shields could be, briefly. Against Superman himself, one of the strongest leaguers of all time, literally possessed. They talk about Superman's might, talking about how he can make the world ashes. This being possessing Superman made it to where Superman has more defense against magic, so we can actually see the full power of Superman's hits. The Dr. Fate's shielding constructs was able to block his heat vision here and block a blow here before he gets punched like through the wall, of course. And we can kind of get an idea of how much his blast power is too, not just how durable his magic shielding is. This being has defense against magic, right? So we can kind of get an idea of how strong Dr. Fate's magical constructs based on Superman's strength or punching power. Because there was a moment where we literally seen Dr. Fate bind Superman for a little bit to where he couldn't really move. This is crucial because if he can bind a being like this, the same Superman that can move the entirety of the moon itself, along with a Green Lantern, Superman was able to move the entirety of the moon, a planetoid of this DCAU. This lets you know how strong the grip is when it comes to his energy projectile type of stuff. He was able to hold him down enough to the point where he could go in his mind. That would be like saying Dr. Fate can hold something down that has the strength to move half of the moon at least, because, you know, Superman had help, of course. But that would mean he was able to restrain something that had defenses against magic, so Superman was not weakened, and he was able to still restrain him long enough to go in his mind. That lets you know how strong his constructs are. That can give you somewhat idea of his blast power energy projection too. Moon trembling or half moon trembling might. And do I have to mention this is the same Superman that withstood a blast, point blank, that was going to rip apart the sun?
Destroy their sun. We destroy the sun, the eye. It contains all the power of the Lantern's battery. It will rip that infernal star apart.
So we just going to ignore that Dr. Fate is restraining a being that can withstand point blank blast, that can rip apart a star, and a being that's strong enough to move half the weight of the moon. This could give us some potential. I mean, he is bonded with a cosmic being known as Nabu. This kind of would make sense for him to be this strong as the mightiest sorcerer on the planet. It kind of all adds up. Matter of fact, Superman himself considers Dr. Fate a quote-unquote big gun.
Let's throw a wave of our big guns at him. Me, Fate, and the android.
when you know his lore like in and out, it just makes sense. The strongest magical user in the world to be up there with Superman. Even if you want to say Superman has the advantage in raw punching power, it doesn't matter about punching power when you're a magic person. He makes up whatever punching power he might lack with blast power and energy projection because of power. You know, he definitely deserves more screen time though. Did you respect DCAU Dr. Fate? Did you know he was this strong? Do you think he can blast away multiple Earths with his magic blast power? If he can kind of damage Superman, even though he's resistant to magic still when he's possessed, I definitely think he's at least a planet mover or a planet buster with his magic. It's just a lot up in the air. Just lacks screen time. But in narrative, he has the cosmic being Naboo, just like the comics we know, the main continuity comics. But before I get going, everybody, respect Fate no matter what. And thanks for the donations, everybody. Helps out a lot. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.